I feel I've done a great job in manifesting a lot of things, and one of them is finding finally a doctor to help. But the doctor is very expensive, and other household things are coming on, and he was the breadwinner. So I'm in a...
But here's the thing.
It doesn't feel good.
We get that.
Okay.
But the reality cannot be what you calibrate to. Every time you say the doctor costs a lot, you calibrate to a shortage consciousness. Every time you say he was the breadwinner and my income isn't enough to replace what he and I were both doing together, you calibrate to something that won't let more money in. In other words, calibration is a real thing. Point of attraction is a real thing. Law of attraction is a real thing. You cannot ask circumstances to be different so that you'll feel different. You got to feel different anyway. You got to find a way of feeling different. So you got to say things, more general things, such as there have been other people in this position and things always do work out in one way or another. And there is a way of lightening up in this, and there are solutions along the way. And in the same way that we have found an effective doctor that knows what he's doing as much as anybody does about this, if we can attract that, then we can attract the means to afford him. And if we can attract that, then we can attract this. And that's the most significant thing. Do you realize in all of that, that's the thing you wanted most? Just a little while ago, that's all you cared about. That was all you cared about. That was the thing that mattered the most. And you got it. You got that thing that you cared the most about. You got a doctor that knows what he's doing. You got the thing that matters most. But you're still complaining. And we understand why. But you got to cut it out. Can you remember when you didn't have that doctor? Does it feel like greater relief now that you've got that doctor? Can you remember when you don't have enough money? Can you imagine a time when you do? You see what we're getting at? You can make the shift. This is the thing. We've always enjoyed visiting with you, and it's because you're real, and it's because you hear what we're saying. But this is the thing that we want all of you to hear. Humans keep wanting conditions to change so that they can have a better feeling response to the condition. That's not what deliberate creation is.
Yesterday or the day before, you were talking about that thing you're thinking about. You can't stop thinking about that because it's still there. And I feel like I asked him, how are you feeling today? And he goes, I'm doing good. And I can tell he doesn't want to talk about it.
Then don't ask him the question. If he can't give you the answer that you need to hear, then stop asking the question and make him lie.
But part of it is that I need to take care of him. When he can't do for himself, then I need to know, do I need to do something for him?
Well, you could establish a relationship where if he wants something or needs something from you, he'll ask, so that you're not hovering around with concern and not sort of poking at something. In other words, never ask a question that you think the answer is going to be contrary to your lining up with who you are and what you're wanting. There are some people who can say, better and better, I'm feeling better and better, I'm feeling better and better, because these things we know, this is not going to take him out. He is on the way to recovery. You have a doctor that knows what he's doing. You are primarily going to get what you want. What you want to do is put yourself in a position where you're not suffering along the way. As much as anything, this is an opportunity for you to understand that you can control the direction of your mind even under conditions like this. And we know it's not an easy thing to do, but it's a possible thing to do. And so far, you've not been focused in a way that is working the way it can or the way you want it to. In other words, what is looming so big in your experience. And this is what's interesting. At first, what is that was looming so big? Because your desire was so strong, you made an end run around that. This is what we mean. When you have a desire that is very, very strong, it doesn't matter what your beliefs are. Your desire will dominate. So your desire was so strong that you accomplished what you wanted by attracting someone who can really guide you in a productive and effective way. Oh, that is so big. That is so worth celebrating. That's so worth thinking about, you see. So this isn't new. It's just exacerbated by the situation. And so isn't it time for you to get a handle on that? And in the same way that this diagnosis caused an eruption of desire within you that was so big that the desire was so strong that it overrode your belief system, this now desire for money is big like that too. And it will also be strong enough to override your belief system. That's what this is about. is to show you the power of pure desire. Most people aren't even close to pure desire because in most cases it doesn't matter that much. If you sort of want it and you sort of don't believe it, no big deal. No big consequences of negative attraction. But when you really, really want it and you're focused in opposition to it, big, big deal. Big enough that with all you know and with what the two of you know, you overcame that. You accomplished so much about that desire. And the other desires will follow too. They will. When your desire to feel good in this moment is as powerful as your desire to find a doctor that could help your husband, everything will be yours like that.
How do I take care of myself better?
Stop arguing for your limitations by getting more sleep, by not hovering and asking questions that you know you're not going to enjoy the answers to, and by calibrating. So let's do some calibration. So, condition is, as you've described it, but we will speak it succinctly. My husband has an illness, and there's a capable doctor all over it, but it costs a lot of money, and it's going to take some time. That's as big as this is. Can you speak that? Do you believe that?
Yes.
Say it then.
My husband is ill, and we have found a doctor that can help and is helping, and it's
taxing us financially.
Yes.
And beyond that, I'm tired. I'm trying to do double duty on a lot of things. I'm trying to keep everything going, and I'm spread too thin, and that's as big as it is, isn't it?
And when his disability runs out, how do I pay for our house?
Well, we already talked about that.
Right.
We already talked about that.
How will I make sure that we're safe and living somewhere?
All right, so because of all of this, I feel, now just give us some words. We know it's shifted a little bit because we've been shouting at you for an hour. And therefore, I feel worried, afraid, I'm worried about
having enough energy to do it all and keep all the plates spinning and keep them all in the air all at the same time.
Now, what's interesting about that is you have felt that way for a really long time before any of this started. Haven't you?
About a lot of different things, yes. And
we know it's bigger now.
There's new plates now. New plates spinning.
There's 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 plates for all of you. In other words, that's the fun of life. So now you've made your statement of the situation, and it's logical that you've calibrated to it because it's big and it's right there for you to observe with your physical senses. So you feel tired and worried and overwhelmed. Now, would you say that you are feeling more often overwhelmment or more often fear? Because as we've listened to you, it just feels like overwhelmment. In other words, too much to do, which means it's a much lighter resistance than you think it is. It's just that it's so steady. It's so often there that you can't quite catch your breath. But it's mostly about overwhelmment. Do you agree? Don't let us put words in your mouth. If you don't agree, it's all right to say it.
Yes, during the week, it's overwhelmment because I can keep myself busy with work and all of the things with my new job. And when work is done, then sometimes the fear creeps in of, oh my God, what am I going to do in the fall?
But for the most part, you're just on a moment-to-moment, day-to-day basis, just overwhelmed with the current reality of the details of this.
I think so, yes.
All right. Now that's been said, and so we've acknowledged what the situation has caused you to calibrate to. And that's easy to understand. We also know that your inner being has been watching all of this and aware of all of this and has calibrated differently. And so now we're going to go to the other side of the notebook and we're going to step back and we're going to do our best to distract ourselves from the situation, which isn't easy because it's big and we've been talking about it a long time here and it's sort of looming. But let's get over there on the other side of this book and let's make the statement, but who I really am in life and what I really know about me and the world and the laws of the universe and so forth is this: am I incapable or capable?
Capable.
And you know that wasn't hard for you to acknowledge.
That's right.
Do I usually get to where I'm going, or do I rarely get what I want?
I get what I want.
I get what I want. Am I a focuser, or?
I'm a focuser.
You are a focuser. You have one of the strongest minds we've ever encountered, which serves you when it serves you and doesn't serve you when it doesn't serve you, both for the same reasons. But I am a focuser. My inner being is a focuser, or my inner being has no interest whatsoever in me.
My inner being loves me.
My inner being is a focuser. My inner being is focused on me. My inner being is all over this. And I have the ability to focus on my inner being, or to pretend like my inner being doesn't exist. I usually ignore the existence of my inner being, or I always know the existence of my inner being.
I mostly know I mostly know that. I'm mostly able to focus
I accept
there.
that my inner being exists. I teeter about my alignment with it, but I know that my inner being exists.
Yes.
My emotions themselves let me know. In other words, if my inner being didn't exist and didn't feel strongly one way, then my opposite thought would not be producing negative emotion. So there has to be something in terms of relativity that is producing this negative emotion. And if I have negative emotion, that is certain. That is proof that my inner being exists, and then my inner being thinks differently than I do about the subject that we're not going to talk about right now.
Right.
Yes?
Yes.
Now, do you feel re-infused just from that? We know you do. That's what calibration is. It's a willingness to tune to what's real instead of to what's not real. To tune to what is permanently real rather than to what seems to be temporarily real. We don't want you to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, and we don't want you to gird up your loins and become all fierce and become defensive and work hard and prove how valiant and wonderful you are. We want you to let the laws of the universe and the non-physical fairies of the universe and all the help that is there for you, we want you to let all of that help in. But in order to let that help in, you got to give up the conversation about how tired you are. You got to give up the conversation about how unfair it feels or how something should have been different, and instead accept that all of this, and this is not the easiest thing to accept, but it is so what's going on here. You're going to look back at this and you're going to say, remember that time before we knew the power of who we are? Remember when that desire was born in us with such a power that we focused in a way like we'd never focused before? Remember when we came into sync with who we really are and with our true power? Remember when we were worried about money? Doesn't that feel dumb now? Remember that? Don't want to remember that. Don't need to remember that. In other words, there will come a time when the actual manifestation of your life experience will be what we are speaking of in terms of future. But it's not future in terms of the vortex. It's now reality. So you've got some choices to make. That's what caring about how you feel is about. You can make the choice of feeling what is now in the vortex, or you can make the choice of acknowledging what is now in terms of manifestation. But that's old news. And if you keep choosing what's now in terms of manifestation, you don't let yourself move toward the true now that is in the process of unfolding. And we know that you know that, but we also know you heard it in a way just now that you have never heard it before. You have a powerful desire, and that will serve you well. And pivoting has worked well for you, but not like calibrating. And once you calibrate and just return to your strength again and again and again. And that doesn't mean you won't have moments when you're down. And when you do, don't be mad at yourself. Esther can hardly wait. She carries her calibration book around with her, just looking for trouble. And when she finds it, she sits down and calibrates. She's like working the bugs out of so many things in her life experience and enjoying when something shows itself to her, especially something she never thought she was going to experience. In other words, it's really interesting when something you never thought you would experience shows up, and you get to acknowledge it and feel it and then calibrate beyond it and then watch the ensuing results that are certain.